They tell you that the ocean erases everything. Blood. Footprints. Names. But the sea doesn't forget, it keeps what you give it and whispers the rest back when the moon is right. My name is Selene Hart, and by the time you finish these pages I'll either be a murderer, a victim, or something worse. I'm writing from a cell that smells of bleach and rust, where nights stretch like black water and the guards call me the widow. They think Damian is dead. They think they know what I did. They don't. Before the trial, before the pier, before the boat that never came back, I was a woman who believed in the ordinary, coffee before sunrise, a husband whose lies tasted like love, a life that looked perfect from the outside. Now I measure time by the sound of the tide and the scrape of a key hidden where no one dares to look. This is not a plea for sympathy. It is a map. Follow it if you want to know how a marriage became a riddle, how a man turned himself into a ghost, and how the truth can drown you long before the water rises. The ocean remembers. And so do I. The first thing you notice about a prison cell isn't the cold. It's the sound. Even now, 3:17 a.m., when most of the women here are lost to their chemical dreams, the air vibrates with whispers. Water pipes groan like restless ghosts. Footsteps click 2 corridors over, measured and deliberate. A cough ricochets through iron bars until it finds me. Sleep is a rumor no one really believes. The walls sweat a faint scent of bleach and rust. Someone, maybe the night janitor, has drowned the corridor in disinfectant, but the undertone of mildew clings to everything. I taste it when I breathe. The ceiling bulb buzzes in a maddening half-hum, the kind that burrows into your skull until it's part of your heartbeat. I lie on the thin mattress, knees drawn to my chest, and replay the same question I've rehearsed for 31 nights. How did I let love become a weapon? When I close my eyes I see Damian's smile, the one that once melted paparazzi and sponsors alike. He could turn sincerity on and off like a stage light. I used to think that smile meant I was safe. Now it's the reason I stare at gray concrete and count the breaths until morning. They booked me for conspiracy to commit murder of my own husband. The irony is a punchline I can't stop choking on. The tabloids call me the Black Widow of Los Verdes. Damian calls me nothing at all. He hasn't visited, though his lawyers circle like vultures. A guard strolls past, keys jangling. I catch a whiff of his aftershave, cheap sandalwood, and it drags me back to the last perfume Damian ever bought me. Joe Malone, Orange Blossom. I wore it the night we signed the separation papers. He leaned close, breathing it in, and whispered, "You'll come back." I remember wondering whether it was a promise or a threat. I reach under the pillow for the spiral notebook they allow me, a cheap blue thing with bent corners. My only audience. My only witness. If you're reading this, whoever you are, know that I'm not writing to beg for sympathy. I'm writing because truth has teeth, and if I keep it inside, it will eat me alive. I wasn't always a cautionary headline. Once, I was Selene Hart, runway model, darling of Paris Fashion Week, the girl whose face launched a half-dozen perfume ads. I learned early that cameras are hungry beasts, they devour the shy and reward the bold. I played their game and I won. I met Damian Boss 9 years ago on a rooftop in downtown LA, back when my world was still champagne and studio lights. I'd just finished a grueling 12-hour shoot, my hair a helmet of hairspray, when he appeared at the bar like a promise. Tailored navy suit, copper brown eyes, a laugh that made the skyline lean closer. "Selene Hart," he said, as if tasting the name. "You sound like a constellation." I should have known that men who speak in poetry are often plotting prose. But I was 26 and dazzled by the way he owned every room without raising his voice. By the end of the night he had my number. By the end of the month he had the keys to my apartment. Damian built his fortune on supplements, powders and pills that promised vigor, beauty, eternal youth. He called his company Voss Vita. Investors called it genius. I called it our ticket to everywhere. Lake Como in the spring. Kyoto in the fall. Photographs of us on red carpets, our smiles rehearsed, our arguments hidden behind the flash. But there were cracks even then. He tracked my auditions, questioned my friends, replaced my phone for security reasons, and kept the old one. I told myself it was love disguised as vigilance. My mother warned me that control wears many outfits. I laughed her off. She was right. I remember one night in Marrakesh, a rare vacation without photographers. We'd been drinking mint tea on a riad terrace, the city a quilt of flickering lights. A waiter, a boy, barely 20, complimented my dress. Damian's hand tightened around mine until my knuckles ached. Later, in the privacy of our suite, he said, "I can't protect you if you flirt with strangers." I said I wasn't flirting. He smiled that soft, terrifying smile. "That's what scares me," he whispered. The next morning the waiter was gone. No explanation. 2 years ago I found the first real proof that Damian's devotion was a cage. An email chain, left open on his laptop, discussing removing liabilities and protecting assets. My name never appeared, but the context was unmistakable. I had become a risk. When I confronted him, he brushed a strand of hair from my face with the same tenderness he used when we first met. "You misunderstand," he said. "You're the best part of my life. I just need to know you'll never leave." I should have run that night. Instead, I poured another glass of wine and pretended control was affection. My modeling contracts slowed as I edged into my 30s. Damian liked that. "You don't need to chase lights anymore," he said. "We have enough." What he meant was, I have enough. And now I have you. The court says I hired someone to kill him. They have recordings, snippets of me venting to a man named Riley Kane, a security consultant Damian himself had introduced. I remember those conversations, late evenings when fear crawled under my skin and Riley seemed like the only safe ear. Did I say words that could be twisted? Probably. I talked about disappearing. About wishing Damian would vanish. I never ordered a hit. But the prosecutors don't need truth, they need theater, and I'm the headline that sells. Some nights I replay those recordings in my head, line by line, trying to hear them the way a stranger would. I can almost convince myself that I sound guilty. A metal clang jolts me back to the present. Down the corridor, someone screams, a raw, animal sound that echoes until it dies in the vents. New arrival, probably. I've learned not to flinch. I stretch my legs and stare at the ceiling, tracing hairline cracks like constellations. If you squint, you can almost find Orion. Damian would love the irony, me, mapping stars on a prison ceiling while he sips 30-year scotch in our glass-walled house above the Pacific. Tomorrow begins the preliminary hearing. My lawyer says we can fight, that Riley's credibility will crumble under cross-examination. But at night, when the cell hums and the pipes moan, I wonder if the real fight isn't out there in court. It's in here, in the dark, where memory and fear wrestle for ownership of my soul. I can almost hear Damian's voice, smooth as bourbon. "You wanted freedom, Selene. Now you have it. Freedom tastes like rust. If you choose to watch further, you'll learn everything, the rooftop seduction, the Thai cafe meetings, the night the detectives knocked, the final betrayal that turned my life into a headline. But first you need to understand this. I did love Damian, boss. And love, when starved of light, can rot into something unrecognizable. The clang of the cell door at dawn is a sound you feel in your teeth. It rattled me awake before the guard even barked my name. Hart. Lawyer. My throat was raw from a night of half-sleep. Cold metal bench, concrete pillow. Still, I sat up straighter. A lawyer meant movement, either hope or doom. The corridor reeked of bleach and steam. Inmates shuffled past, their slippers whispering against the floor like dead leaves. A few glanced at me the way people watch a fox caught in a trap, curiosity, pity, maybe a little satisfaction. The visitors' room was warmer but no less sterile, a grid of plexiglass booths under humming fluorescent lights. I slid into my seat and lifted the heavy receiver. On the other side of the glass sat Alec Rowan, the only attorney willing to take my case. He wasn't cheap. Damian had made sure of that by freezing every joint account before the world knew my name. Yet Alec was here, rumpled navy suit, dark hair uncombed, eyes like someone who had stared too long into other people's nightmares. "You look better than I expected," he said, voice low. "I suppose that's a compliment," I answered. He studied me for a beat, then dropped a file thick enough to choke a woodchipper onto the counter. People vs. Selene Hart was stamped across the top in angry red. "You realize what they're saying, right?" he asked. "This isn't accessory to fraud. This is murder." The word hung between us like a live wire. I could still taste the night air of 3 months ago, salted by the Atlantic, sharpened by secrets, when Damian disappeared. We had argued in the penthouse kitchen until the walls vibrated. "You think you own me," I'd spat. "I own what I built," he shot back, voice a low growl. "And what is that, Damian? Lies stacked on lies?" The fight had ended not with a slam of doors but with an eerie quiet. He left without his phone, without a wallet. Just gone. The next morning the tabloids screamed tech titan missing. By evening the police were at my door. Alec's voice pulled me back to the present. "Selene, they found his watch near the cliffs. Blood on the clasp." "That doesn't prove," I started, but he raised a hand. "It doesn't prove, but it points. And the way they see it, the tide took his body and you helped it along." I leaned closer to the glass. "Do you believe that?" He didn't blink. "I believe you need to tell me everything you've been holding back." I hesitated. For weeks I'd been writing in the margins of a battered leather journal, dates, scraps of memory, pieces of a puzzle even I couldn't name. But confessing to Alec meant surrendering the only thing still mine. "Selene," he pressed, softer now, "if you keep secrets, the state will bury you alive." I almost laughed. Secrets are the only reason I'm still breathing, I thought. Instead I said, "There's more. But not yet. I need to put it in order." Alec exhaled, long and slow. "Then start tonight. Every detail. Childhood, marriage, every time Damian scared you. We build from there." He checked his watch, gathered his files. Before hanging up, he looked at me the way a surgeon studies a tumor, calculating where to cut. Back in my cell, I opened the journal and let the memories bleed. I was 21 when I met Damian Hart. He found me at a charity gala, a hurricane in a tailored suit. His confidence was gravitational. Within a month he'd moved me into a Soho loft and whispered promises like silk around my throat. But love with Damian was a contract written in invisible ink. Every kiss carried fine print. He monitored my calls, curated my friends, claimed it was for our brand. I told myself it was devotion. By the time I noticed the isolation, it felt almost comforting, like a glass cage I could lean against. The first real crack came on a stormy night when he returned from a trip to Zurich. His shirt smelled of airport whiskey and someone else's perfume. I asked a question too many. His hand slammed the counter, shattering a crystal glass. "Never doubt me," he hissed, eyes wild. I remember thinking, this is how tragedies start, quietly, with a single broken glass. The prison quieted after lights out, but my mind didn't. Somewhere down the hall, a woman wept into her pillow. The sound threaded through the concrete like a warning. I flipped the journal to a fresh page and wrote, "If anyone ever reads this, know that I tried. I tried to leave, to tell someone, to find proof. Damian always found me first. The pen trembled in my hand. Was I writing a defense or a confession? A guard's footsteps echoed closer. I snapped the book shut, hiding it beneath the thin mattress. Sleep finally came in shards, carrying dreams of the cliffside where Damian's watch had been found, waves exploding against black rock, the smell of ozone and iron. In the dream I stood alone on the precipice, wind tearing at my hair, and a voice, his voice, whispered right behind me. "You'll never be rid of me, Selene." I turned and woke to the morning bell. The courthouse smelled of wet wool and panic. They marched me in before sunrise, wrists cuffed, the clank echoing off marble like a metronome for dread. Reporters lined the hallway, their camera flashes sharp as razors. I kept my head down, hair curtaining my face. 100 lenses still pierced through. Inside the courtroom the air was colder, as if justice required refrigeration. I sat beside Alec at the defense table while the bailiff called the case. State of New York versus Selene Hart, charge of second-degree murder. The words slid across the room and wrapped around my throat. Damian's parents were there, of course. His mother wore grief like a tailored suit, black veil hiding eyes that could still slice granite. His father didn't bother with the pretense, he glared openly, jaw clenched, an accusation carved in flesh. The judge entered. Everyone rose. I stayed perfectly still until Alec tugged my sleeve. "Not guilty," he instructed when my plea was requested. The phrase felt foreign on my tongue. Not guilty. It sounded like someone else speaking through me. While motions droned on, I studied the spectators. Front row, I saw a familiar face, a man with storm gray eyes and a scar across his jaw. For a heartbeat I couldn't place him. Then memory clicked, Detective Mara Calder's partner, from the night they searched the penthouse. Why was he here, alone, watching me like prey? Our eyes locked. He gave the faintest shake of his head, a gesture I couldn't decode. Warning? Threat? Something else entirely? The judge's voice faded into the hum of fluorescent lights, and I was back in the penthouse 3 months earlier. Damian had been pacing, phone to his ear, words clipped and rapid. Swiss bankers again, or so he claimed. I'd confronted him with the envelope of photographs, images mailed anonymously the week before. Damian with a brunette I didn't recognize, standing too close on a private jet. He barely glanced at them. Cheap forgery, he said, tossing the photos into the fireplace. But the way his hand trembled told me otherwise. That night the storm hit. Rain hammered the city, lightning painting the skyline. We argued until my throat burned. I'm done, Damian. I want a divorce. His face froze, unreadable. Then he smiled, a slow, surgical smile. Selene, he whispered, you don't leave me. Ever. Those were the last words I heard before he vanished. Bail is denied. The gavel cracked, jolting me into the present. The room erupted, cameras, murmurs, the rustle of expensive fabric. Alec leaned in. I'll appeal, he said, low and urgent. But we expected this. Expected it, perhaps. Survived it? Another matter. The bailiff led me out as Damian's mother's veil tilted slightly, following my every step. Behind her, the detective with the scar rose and slipped through a side door. Not toward the exit. Toward the judge's chambers. The van ride back to Rikers felt longer than the entire trial that awaited. Rain streaked the narrow windows. The guard across from me flipped a coin over and over, the metallic clink matching the rattle of my cuffs. I closed my eyes and drifted again, this time to the cliff. It was 2 nights after Damian disappeared. I'd driven there at midnight, compelled by something I still can't name. Maybe a memory of our first weekend escape, maybe a dream. The wind smelled of brine and electricity. That's when I saw it, a glint among the rocks. Damian's watch. Gold clasp sticky with what looked like rust until moonlight revealed a darker truth. I should have called the police immediately. Instead, I pocketed it. Why? Because I knew what they'd assume. Because part of me wanted to keep a piece of him, proof he was more than a ghost. Back in my cell, the journal waited. I wrote until my fingers cramped, capturing every fragment the arraignment had shaken loose. He promised me forever. Maybe this is what he meant. A scrape of metal interrupted me. The slot in my door slid open. A folded note slipped through. No name. Just 4 words in block letters. Stop digging or drown. I lunged to the door, but the corridor was empty. The note triggered another memory, one I'd tried to bury. 2 weeks before Damian vanished, I'd stumbled across a hidden panel in his study, a false back behind a row of art books. Inside sat a sleek biometric safe. I had pressed my palm against it, felt the faint warmth of the scanner, but of course it didn't open. That night Damian returned from Zurich, agitated. "Did you touch my study?" he asked casually, too casually. I lied. He kissed me then, slow and deliberate, a warning disguised as affection. What lay inside that safe? Evidence of fraud? Photos of another life? Or something far worse? Lights out came, but I stayed awake, mind gnawing on the note like a bone. The scarred detective's gray eyes surfaced again. Was he the one who left the message? If so, why? To scare me silent, or to guide me deeper? I pressed my forehead against the cool cinder block and whispered into the dark. "Damian, what did you start?" No answer came, only the distant clang of a gate and the low murmur of guards changing shifts. The prison library smells of mildew and resignation. I signed up for a cleaning shift there because it's the only place where silence feels chosen instead of forced. Rows of battered paperbacks sag on their shelves, the kind of books people read to forget they exist. That's where he found me. The scarred detective. I was wiping dust from a stack of encyclopedias when his shadow stretched across the aisle. No guard announced him. No footsteps warned me. Just sudden presence, like a door opening into a room I didn't know was there. "Selene," he said. I straightened slowly, heart rattling. "You're not supposed to be back here. Neither are half the people in this place." He smiled, though it didn't reach those storm-gray eyes. "Call me Rourke." I remembered him from the courtroom, silent, watchful. The scar from ear to jaw caught the library's flickering light, a pale lightning bolt. "What do you want?" I asked. "Truth," he said simply. "And maybe to keep you alive." He lowered his voice. Damian Hart had enemies stacked like poker chips. Offshore fraud, stolen patents, blackmail. But the state wants a neat ending, and you're convenient. "I'm already on trial for his murder," I said. "How much neater does it get?" Rourke glanced toward the door. "Someone higher up is pushing this. I can feel it. The watch, the cliff, that's theater. There's more buried." I studied him. "Why tell me?" "Because you're next," he said. "Whoever made Damian disappear doesn't like unfinished business." The memory of the anonymous note, "Stop digging or drown," scraped across my mind like broken glass. Rourke slid a small envelope onto the cart of books. "Inside is an address. If you ever get out, go there. Until then, write everything you know. Every number, every name. Don't trust the mail. Someone's reading it." Before I could reply, he melted into the stacks and was gone. Back in my cell, I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. A single scrap of paper, handwritten. Pier 47, Locker 3B. Nothing more. I hid it in my journal and began to write, dredging memories like a diver searching for bodies. It was winter when Damian first mentioned a venture fund in Switzerland. We sat in the gilded bar of the Dolder Grand while snow sifted past the windows. "It's a hedge," he said, eyes glittering. "A firewall for us." "For us," I repeated, though even then the word tasted like iron. Later that night I woke to the soft click of the hotel door. Damian was gone. When he returned before dawn, his coat smelled of cold metal and rain. No explanation. The next morning he bought me a diamond bracelet so heavy it felt like a shackle. The memory of the hidden safe nagged at me. What if the combination wasn't biometric at all but something simpler, something I could guess if I remembered the right pattern? A birthday, a date? I scribbled possibilities in the journal. Our wedding day. My mother's birthday. The night of the Zurich storm. Then another thought struck like a live wire, the sequence of numbers Damian used for every private jet booking, 47-3B. Pier 47. Locker 3B. My breath caught. Coincidence or breadcrumb? The next morning Alec arrived, eyes bloodshot from another all-nighter. "You look worse than I do," I said. "Working on it," he muttered. "I have news, though. Forensics found partial prints on the watch that don't match you." Hope flickered, fragile. "Damian's?" "Not exactly. They're still running them. But it buys us leverage." I debated telling him about Rourke, the locker, the note. In the end, I stayed silent. Not because I distrusted Alec, but because some instincts feel older than reason. That night the women on my block whispered about me. "She's the rich one whose husband went swimming," one snickered. Another replied, "Bet she pushed him." Men like that don't just vanish. Their laughter slithered through the bars. I pressed my palms to my ears until the sound blurred into the low hum of the radiator. Sleep dragged me under like a rip current. I stood again on the cliff, waves exploding below. Damian emerged from the mist, immaculate suit, no blood, eyes black as oil. "You think you're free," he said. Wind tore at his words, but I heard them anyway. Then the ground beneath me crumbled and I fell, plunging into a sea of cold light. I woke gasping, heart pounding so hard the cot rattled. At breakfast a guard slid a tray through the slot. Under the crust of stale bread lay another folded square. This one read, "The safe is the beginning." No signature. Same block letters. I looked up, scanning the corridor, but everyone moved like nothing had happened. By evening I'd filled 10 more pages of the journal, every Zurich meeting, every offshore whisper, every night Damian returned with eyes too bright and hands that trembled. I wrote until the skin of my fingers cracked, until the ink bled into the paper like bruises. At the bottom of the last page I scrawled a single line. "If I survive, I will open that locker. If I don't, this is my map." I closed the book and pressed it to my chest, heartbeat hammering against the leather cover. Somewhere beyond the walls, waves struck the Manhattan piers. I counted them like seconds to an unseen deadline. A siren yanked me from sleep before dawn. Not the usual bell or guard's bark, this was sharper, urgent, a blade of sound slicing the block in half. The door slammed open. 2 officers filled the frame, black-vested and silent. "Hart," one said. "You're moving." "Moving where?" "Protective custody." 2 words that should have meant safety but felt like a verdict. They cuffed me tighter than usual and hustled me down a back corridor where the fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps. Outside, a transport van idled, windows blacked out. Rain slicked the asphalt, reflecting the security lights in broken shards. I climbed in, the air inside heavy with damp metal and diesel. No other prisoners. Only a driver and a second guard whose eyes never left the rearview mirror. The city blurred past, bridges, warehouses, the glint of the East River under a pewter sky. Why protective custody? I asked finally. The guard's jaw tightened. Threats. From who? Silence. Half an hour later the van slowed. We weren't at Rikers anymore. The door slid open and a man stepped in from the rain. Rourke. Same storm gray eyes, same scar, but this time he wore a plain black jacket instead of a badge. Morning, Selene, he said, as if we were meeting for coffee. The guard handed him a clipboard to sign. I glimpsed the name, blank where an agency should be. This isn't protocol, I said. Protocol's what got you nearly killed, Rourke replied. Somebody inside leaked your location. You were one kitchen shift away from an accident. He motioned for the driver to move. The van rolled again, deeper into the city's industrial belly. Tell me about the safe, he said. My breath caught. How do you? Because Damian told me, Rourke interrupted. Not in words. In the trail he left. Offshore accounts, coded transfers. I've been chasing him longer than you knew his name. I stared. You think he's alive? I think, Rourke said carefully, that the man who vanished from your penthouse wanted everyone to believe he died. And he needed you framed to pull it off. Images flashed. Damian smiled at last night, the missing wallet, the perfect watch left on the cliff like bait. If that safe opens, Rourke continued, we'll know why. The van stopped beneath a dripping overpass. We stepped into the wet pre-dawn. Fog rolled off the river, swallowing the skyline. Ahead, Pier 47 jutted into the water like a crooked finger. Locker 3B waited inside a row of rusted metal doors. Rourke keyed in a code and swung it open. Inside sat a black duffel bag and a manila envelope. The duffel held bricks of cash bound with foreign bank bands, euros, francs, currencies I didn't recognize. The envelope contained photographs, Damian with men in tailored suits, meetings in Geneva, Dubai, Hong Kong. In every image his expression was the same, calm, almost amused. At the bottom lay a single sheet of paper covered in numbers and one line of text. If she reads this, the game is over. I felt the pier tilt beneath me. He planned this, I whispered. Planned me. Rourke nodded grimly. And someone else is finishing the plan. Beneath the cash we found a slim digital recorder. Rourke pressed play. Damian's voice poured into the damp air, low, deliberate, intimate. Selene. If you're hearing this, you've finally stopped pretending. They'll call it murder. They'll call you a widow. But you're the only one who will understand why I had to disappear. I gripped the railing as the message continued. The fund was a mask. The real prize is in the numbers you've already memorized, though you don't know it yet. Zurich was only the first move. Trust no one. Not even the man standing beside you. The recording clicked off. I turned slowly toward Rourke. He didn't flinch. He's trying to turn us on each other. Or warn me, I said. Rain thickened to a curtain. The city beyond the fog was waking, horns, distant sirens, the grind of early trucks. Rourke zipped the duffel and shouldered it. You have two options, he said. Come with me, and we keep digging. Or go back to Rikers, let the trial eat you alive while Damian rewrites the ending. I stared at the recorder, Damian's voice still echoing like a ghost in my skull. For the first time since his disappearance, I felt him, not as a memory, but as a living presence threading every shadow of my life. I followed Rourke. Not because I trusted him, but because every instinct screamed that standing still was the real trap. We slipped into the fog, the duffel heavy with money and secrets. Somewhere behind us, the river swallowed the pier's reflection. And for the first time in months, I wasn't sure whether I was running from Damian or straight toward him. The clang of metal on stone wakes me before dawn. For a breathless second I don't know where I am. The cell ceiling glows a sickly gray from the corridor light, and the damp smell of bleach clings to my hair. Then I remember the dream, Damian's fingers tracing my jaw like a question mark, and I'm almost grateful for the interruption. Mail call, a guard mutters. An envelope slides under the door. I sit up, heartbeat snagging on the side of my name written in the slanted, elegant script I once traced with kisses, Damian Hart. No return address. No stamp. Somehow it's here. I don't open it immediately. Instead I let memories seep in, our first apartment, the way he'd leave tiny notes under my coffee cup, your smile is my sunrise. Now the same handwriting crawls across paper like a spider. The letter is short. Selene. You never really saw me. Tonight, look under the bed. D. The words vibrate through me like a struck wire. My bed. This bed? I drop to the floor, ignoring the chill of concrete, and peer beneath the steel cot. Only dust, a half-crumpled water cup, and a matchbox. Not prison issue. Inside, a brass key, small enough for a jewelry box. Tied to it with black thread is a slip of parchment, the truth isn't here. Later, during morning count, I keep the key hidden in my fist. Questions spin. Who smuggled this in? Is Damian even alive to send it? Detective Vega swore he'd drowned when the boat went down, yet no body surfaced. I remember the cold Atlantic wind that night, the way he whispered "trust me" before everything exploded into sirens. When the other inmates shuffle to the cafeteria, I stay behind for janitorial duty, a privilege I earned by pretending to be harmless. The storage closet is my momentary sanctuary. I shut the door and breathe in the chemical tang. The key burns against my palm. Vega once hinted that Damian owned a townhouse in Lisbon, a place I'd never seen. Could this key belong there? Or to something closer, something Vega himself hid? I imagine his voice, "Tell me everything, Selene." Would he still believe me innocent if he knew I'd found this? That night I dream of Lisbon's narrow streets. In the dream, Damian stands in a window, holding a candle. He mouths words I can't hear. Behind him, a figure moves, female, tall, hair like spilled ink. I wake to a faint scent of sandalwood. Damian's cologne. 2 days later Vega visits again. He looks tired, salt threading his black hair. "Selene," he says, "we located a safe deposit box in your name. Opened last week in Manhattan." "I don't have a box," I answer, too quickly. His gaze sharpens. "The signature was yours." I think of the brass key hidden in the hem of my jumpsuit. A box. A signature forged. Damian's handwriting, perfect as ever. Vega leans closer, voice dropping. "Whatever game he's playing, don't let him pull you back." I meet his eyes. What if I'm the one pulling the strings? For once, he has no reply. That night, as rain needles the tiny window, I realize the cell door hasn't latched. Just a fraction, but enough. I don't move. I just listen to the silence widening like a wound. The corridor hums with midnight quiet. Even the usual drip of the busted pipe has gone still, as if the building itself is holding its breath. The door of my cell remains ajar by the width of a fingernail. Not an accident. Not with these guards. I press my palm against the cold steel. It shifts, silent, effortless. For a moment I just stand there, heart thudding like a slow drum. I've imagined freedom 1,000 times, but never like this. Not a sprint for daylight. Something more deliberate. A summons. Damian's letter repeats in my skull, "You never really saw me. Tonight, look under the bed." The matchbox key is warm in my pocket. I step into the hallway. The fluorescent lights flicker in sync with my pulse. Every sound, my breath, the squeak of rubber on linoleum, seems broadcast to the entire block. But the guard station is empty. Empty. The air smells of ozone and rain, as if a storm waits just outside the walls. I move through the corridors like a ghost, my memory mapping each turn from months of routine. Down the laundry chute corridor, past the kitchen, until I reach the exterior service door. It stands half open, a triangle of wet night visible beyond. The city beyond the prison is a black ocean, rain-slicked and shining. Thunder mutters in the distance. For one razor-edged second I think of Vega, his quiet faith in me, the way his eyes search for the truth beneath my words. If I leave now, I burn that bridge forever. But Damian is out there. Alive. Calling. A figure steps from the shadows. Going somewhere, Selene? Detective Vega. No badge in sight, just a hooded raincoat and eyes like storm clouds. You followed me, I whisper. You think I'd let you vanish without answers? He nods at the matchbox key in my fist. I knew he'd reach for you again. How? Because Damian Hart never dies easy. Lightning slashes the sky, painting his face in brief silver. He holds out his hand. Come with me. We can open the box together. The box. The key. My pulse hammers with a dangerous, giddy hope. We slip into the rain-soaked night. Vega leads me through an alley to an unmarked sedan. The city feels like another planet, smells of wet asphalt, distant gasoline, and the faint sweetness of bakery bread carried on storm air. Every sense is sharper, almost painful. He drives in silence until we reach a downtown bank, dark except for a single security light. Inside, the vault corridor echoes with our steps. Box 317 waits. My hands shake as I slide the brass key into the lock. It fits perfectly. Inside lies a single item, a black and white photograph. Damian and me, laughing on the Lisbon pier. But in the corner of the picture, half hidden by shadow, stands a tall woman with hair like spilled ink, the same figure from my dream. On the back, a message. Selene. She's closer than you think. D. Vega's jaw tightens. Who is she? I stare at the photo until the woman's blurred face seems to move. A memory stirs, Damian's late-night calls, the faint trace of sandalwood on his clothes, the whisper of a name I never managed to catch. And then I know. She's not a stranger, I say. She's the reason this all began. Thunder rolls above us, long and low, like the start of a war. The photograph trembles in my hands. Not from the draft in the vault corridor, but from something deeper, an instinct honed long before prison walls. My pulse pounds in my ears until I almost miss Vega's voice. Selene, he says quietly, who is she? I drag my gaze from the blurred figure in the background. The woman's hair spills like dark ink across her shoulders, her posture elegant, deliberate. And I remember, late nights when Damian's phone would buzz and he'd step onto the balcony, voice low, a soft lilt in his words that wasn't for me. A single name resurfaces, whispered like a ghost. Isolde. I taste the syllables before I speak. Isolde Crane. Vega frowns. Never heard of her. You wouldn't. Damian met her in Lisbon, before we married. He said she was a gallery owner. A patron. I almost choke on the word. But every time she called, he'd leave the room. Lightning flashes outside the vault's frosted window. For a heartbeat, the woman's shadow in the photograph seems to lengthen, as if reaching for us. Vega takes the photo, studies the edges. This paper's new. Whoever delivered it wanted you to find it tonight. The brass key still warms my pocket, as if pulsing with a second heartbeat. I glance at the clock above the vault door, 3:03 a.m. The hour of unsettled spirits, my grandmother would have said. Why show me this now? I murmur. Why after everything? Vega meets my eyes. Because Damian isn't done. We drive through rain-slick streets toward Vega's office. Neon reflections smear across the windshield like oil paint. I watch the city slide by, memories bleeding into the night, Damian and me on a Lisbon rooftop, the scent of sandalwood thick around us, his promise, nothing can separate us, Selene. Not even death. When we reach the precinct, Vega spreads the photo beneath a desk lamp. If Isolde Crane exists, he says, we can find her. But we need proof. I close my eyes. More fragments return, a gallery with high arched ceilings, a painting of a storm-tossed sea, and Isolde's voice, low, hypnotic, accented. Art is a mirror of the soul, Selene. Are you sure you like what you see? Vega pulls up an international database. No matches. No tax records, no passport, nothing. As if she stepped from the canvas and disappeared. Then his computer beeps. An email. No subject line. He clicks. A single sentence appears. You've taken what isn't yours. Return to where it began. No signature. But attached is an audio file, 30 seconds of faint waves lapping against stone. My breath catches. The Lisbon pier. Vega looks at me. This is a trap. Or an invitation, I whisper. The sound of those waves fills the room, familiar and terrible. In the background, if I strain, I hear a second sound, a man's low laugh. Damian's. Hours later, I sit alone in the precinct's dim hallway while Vega arranges an emergency flight. The rain has stopped, but the air tastes of iron. I know one thing. If I follow this trail back to Lisbon, I may finally learn why Damian wanted me alive, and why Isolde's shadow has stalked my dreams. And if I don't? The mystery will finish what the prison walls could not. The plane descends through a quilt of clouds, Lisbon's lights flickering like drowned stars beneath us. I haven't been back since the night everything shattered, the night Damian whispered trust me and the ocean swallowed the rest. My chest tightens with every meter we drop. Vega sits beside me, half asleep but tense, one hand resting near the inside pocket of his jacket where I know his service weapon waits. He's not just a detective anymore, he's the only tether I have to reality. Still sure? He asks without opening his eyes. No, I answer. But I'm going anyway. The airport smells of roasted coffee and sea wind. We move through customs with forged calm, though I feel the photo in my bag like a living thing. Outside, the night air carries the salt of the Atlantic and the faint sweetness of oranges. A black car waits at the curb. The driver, a man with gray stubble and a scar down his cheek, holds a sign, Hart. I freeze. We gave no names. Vega steps forward, blocking me. Who sent you? The man's English is crisp, but his smile doesn't reach his eyes. A friend of Mr. Hart. He asked me to take the lady to the pier. He gestures to me, not Vega. I feel the key in my pocket pulse, or maybe it's just my own heart. We don't argue. Vega slides in first, and I follow. The car glides through narrow streets slick with rain, the yellow street lamps turning the cobblestones into molten gold. Shadows lean from ancient walls. Every corner hums with memory. When we reach the old waterfront, the driver stops and tips his cap. Boa sort, he says. Good luck. The pier stretches into the dark like a finger pointing to nothing. Waves slap the stone in the exact rhythm from the audio file. And there, beneath the weak light of a single lamp, stands a woman. Isolde Crane is not a ghost. She is flesh, tall and deliberate, a silhouette cut from midnight silk. Her hair spills black as ink over her shoulders, just as in the photograph. Only her eyes, pale as moonstone, gleam with something almost inhuman. "Selene," she says, voice smooth as tidewater. "You came." Her accent is everywhere and nowhere, French vowels softened by Portuguese melody. I step closer despite myself. "Where is Damian?" My voice is raw. She tilts her head. "Everywhere you've ever looked for him." Vega shifts behind me, a silent shadow. Isolde reaches into her coat and withdraws a small leather journal. "He left this for you." His confession. "But you must read it alone." She holds it out, and when our fingers almost touch, a strange cold slides up my arm, like seawater in winter. I take the journal. The leather smells of sandalwood. Damian's scent. When I look up, Isolde is gone. Not a footstep, not a ripple in the night. Just the sound of the black Atlantic and Vega's startled curse. Back at the hotel, I open the journal under a flickering lamp. Damian's handwriting flows across the pages in dark ink, each word a blade. "Selene, if you're reading this, the game is nearly done. Isolde is not who you think. She is the beginning. She is the end. And so are you." My breath catches. "You wanted the truth. Here it is, there was never a murder. There was never a death. Only the art of disappearance. We are the art, Selene. We are the storm." The final page is blank except for a single line at the bottom. "Look in the mirror." I stare at the words until they blur. Vega watches me, brow furrowed. "What does it mean?" he asks. I rise, cross to the bathroom mirror. The fluorescent light buzzes overhead. For a moment all I see is my own face, pale, hollow-eyed. Then a second reflection slides into view behind me. Damian. Smiling. For a heartbeat I cannot breathe. Damian's reflection stands inches behind mine, his outline limned in the jaundiced bathroom light. He is exactly as I remember, tall, shoulders easy, the faint smirk that once dissolved me into laughter. But the air behind me is empty. I whirl, nothing. Just the hotel's stale shadow. When I face the mirror again, he is still there. "Selene," he says, voice low and familiar, but the sound comes from nowhere, everywhere. My throat works around a single word. "How?" "You followed the trail." His smile widens, not cruel, just certain. "I knew you would." I press my palms to the counter until the laminate creaks. "You're dead." No, his head tilts, perfectly real. I'm free. Behind me Vega pounds on the door. "Selene, what's happening?" "Don't," Damian warns, eyes glinting like wet stone. He'll never understand. He wants a confession. I want a resurrection. The glass vibrates beneath my fingertips, humming with an energy that feels alive. I back away, but the room tilts, the walls bending like molten metal. The mirror ripples once, then stills, Damian's figure unchanged. "What do you want?" I whisper. "To finish the masterpiece." He gestures, inside the reflection, to the leather journal lying on the sink. "Read the last page again." I flip it open. Where the single line once sat, new words bloom in ink that wasn't there moments ago. "Turn around." The hair along my neck prickles. I obey. Damian stands in the doorway. Vega bursts in a second later, gun raised. Hands where I can see them. But Damian doesn't move, doesn't even glance his way. His eyes stay locked on mine. "Tell him, Selene. Tell him who we are." The air smells of sandalwood and salt, the scent of every memory I tried to bury. My pulse is a drumbeat. "We?" Vega's voice sharpens. "Selene, what's going on?" Damian steps forward, and the lights flicker. "Two halves of the same design," he murmurs. "You knew it the night on the pier." Fragments crash through me. Our midnight talks about art as immortality, his obsession with illusions, the way he once said, a true disappearance isn't absence, it's transformation. You faked it all, I breathe. The boat. The letters. The key. He smiles like a teacher pleased with his pupil. And you, my love, completed it. The perfect witness. The perfect accomplice. Vega advances, weapon steady. Step back, Hart. It ends now. Damian's gaze flicks to him at last, and for an instant the room darkens, the walls trembling as if under deep water. It never ends, he says softly. The mirror shatters, not outward but inward, shards folding into themselves until only a black surface remains, reflecting nothing. When the lights steady, Damian is gone. The silence is deafening. Vega lowers his gun, eyes searching every corner. Selene, was he, did you see? I can't answer. My hands are wet with salt, as though I've been waiting in the Atlantic. On the counter, the leather journal lies open again. One final message bleeds across the page, ink still wet. The art lives in you now. We leave the hotel before dawn. Vega doesn't speak, and I don't try. The streets of Lisbon gleam with rain, every reflection in every puddle a question mark. When we reach the pier, the tide is retreating. A gull cries once, harsh and lonely. I step to the edge and look into the black water. My face stares back, only mine. But as the first rays of morning catch the surface, I swear another shadow moves beneath, long hair swirling like ink. Morning in Lisbon tastes of salt and burnt coffee. Vega and I sit in a riverside cafe whose cracked windows sweat with early sunlight. He stirs his espresso without drinking, watching me like a man guarding a bomb. You didn't sleep, he says. I dreamed, I answer. Same thing. In the dream Damian whispered against my ear, you already know how it ends. When I woke, the scent of sandalwood lingered, impossible and real. Vega finally breaks the silence. Selene, I checked every camera in the hotel. No one entered or left that room but you and me. I expected this. I also expected the grainy security stills he slides across the table, me alone in the bathroom, talking to an empty mirror, holding my hands out to nothing. Yet on the edge of the photo, a faint smear of darker shadow curls like a tide-pool whirl. When I blink, it's gone. You think I'm losing it, I say. I think, he answers carefully, that Damian built his life around making people doubt what they see. We return to the pier at noon. The Atlantic is a dull pewter under a low sky. Fishermen call to one another in Portuguese, a child chases gulls across the stones. I stand at the same spot where Damian's reflection first appeared. The black water laps quietly, like a heartbeat. Why bring me here again? I ask. Vega crouches, touches the wet stone. Because we found something. From his pocket he produces a waterproof bag. Inside, a small brass locket crusted with salt. I take it, fingers trembling. The hinge resists, then yields with a faint click. Inside, 2 photos, Damian as a boy, freckled, solemn, and a tiny print of me, cut from a modeling shoot I barely remember. On the back of my image, scrawled in that unmistakable hand. Selene, the sea keeps secrets better than we do. The locket is warm, impossibly warm, as if it has a pulse. A gust of wind rises, carrying a scent I can name without thought, sandalwood. My skin prickles. From somewhere beneath the waves comes a sound like distant laughter. Vega stiffens, scanning the empty horizon. Then the water swells once, a single smooth bulge, and settles. I step closer to the edge. Damian, I whisper. The surface clears. My reflection stares back, calm, alone. Until it smiles. I stagger back. Vega grabs my arm, but when he looks, he sees only ripples. He's gone, Vega insists. No, I murmur, feeling the locket throb like a heartbeat against my palm. He's just waiting. That night we stay in a different hotel, a modern glass tower far from the waterfront. I lie awake as moonlight sheets across the room. Every sound, the elevator cables, the city's soft exhale, feels rehearsed. Near midnight, the locket begins to tick. Not like a clock. Like something alive. I open it. The photograph of Damian is wet, though the room is dry. Saltwater beads along the edges and traces a single word across the boy's face. Home. I understand then. This isn't an ending. It's an invitation to keep searching, to keep telling, to never stop. I close the locket and whisper into the darkness, I see you. Somewhere, beyond walls and tides, a low voice answers, faint but certain. Good. I have been home for 3 months. Home, though, is a word that drifts. The Lisbon apartment Vega rented for me is bright and whitewashed, the kind of place that should smell of detergent and morning sun. But every time I open the windows, the Atlantic steals inside, briny and familiar, like a lover who knows the spare key. Vega visits less now. He calls, checks on me, still searching for a case he can close. But we both know there is no file for what happened. There is only the locket, ticking softly in the drawer, a heartbeat that never stops. At night I walk to the pier. Fishermen nod, gulls wheel overhead, the tide slides in and out with the patient breath of a sleeping giant. I speak to the water as if it listens. Maybe it does. Sometimes I think I hear Damian's voice in the surf, sometimes I think it's my own. I tell myself he was a man. Flesh. Bone. Brilliant and cruel. A master of vanishing acts. But when I see my reflection ripple into a second face, when I feel the warmth of the locket against my skin, I know better. He isn't gone. Neither am I. We are the art. We are the storm. And the ocean keeps our secret.